Before I introduce Dr. Kuman, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a long-term university professor and writer, and she often jokes that she spent her life really as a writer among scientists and a scientist among writers. And she does now write science fiction, which brings the two worlds together. She was born and educated in Europe, holds a PhD degree in science and a degree in medical biophysics from Europe. She has extended experience in teaching and popularizing science, which helps her present even complicated things in a manner that's easy to understand. She speaks more than 12 languages and that's enabled her to read ancient sources in their original language and to read the web pages of ancient history about many nations. And her knowledge of ancient texts helped her to integrate ancient wisdom and to do so in a really scientific manner. And I really enjoy Dr. Kuman's work because she answers so many questions in a very, very credible and scientific manner. Well, Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Steve.
Thank you, Maria. We're really excited, and I want to thank you particularly because I know you've got a cold and you've still made it for us, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, Maria, the first question I want to ask you is for you to explain to us where your work exploring the mysteries of our world began, or how it began.
This is difficult to answer because I have been a curious girl all my life. And I had a lot of questions in my head that were not answered. And when I started writing the books, I had been planning when I retired from the university to write books. But it happened so that there was budget cuts and everybody who was part-time was laid off. So I desperately looked for jobs for a while. And then I decided, okay, maybe it is time to sit down and write the books that I had been planning to write all my life. So I started writing, and this writing continued 25 years. And I have written 25 books. I cannot believe myself that I reached the number 25. If somebody would tell me I will write 25 books, I will say, I doubt it. The number is too big. So I had a lot of questions in my head during my lifetime, and I just started getting the answers. And sometimes they will be funneled in my head in the middle of writing another book. So I'm very thankful for these gifts. And being a scientist, I spend a lot of time trying to find proof that other sources said the same. So, and in this way, the things that I have look really logical and have some weight.
Well, that's Maria. I know that you've come up with many, many answers yourself through your channeling, but you've done a huge amount of scientific research to validate them. I want to ask you if you could explain to us your understanding of the Ice Ages.
The Ice Ages?
Yes, the different Ice Ages and Noah's flood.
Yeah. I will tell you that I read a book written by John and Catherine Embry about the Ice Ages solving the mystery. And I was so impressed by this book because he has periodicity of Ice Ages based on the research done on study of the glaciers. And I read ancient sources that speak about periodicity of ice ages, and they give precisely what is the periodicity. And I compare with our contemporary studies of the glaciers, and the difference was 0.3%, which means the ancients knew what they were talking about.
So they knew about these periodic ice ages, and they made the connection with Noah's Ark and the flood, or you made that connection?
Yeah. I was able, based on study of the glaciers, to date Noah's flood. And this is the big flood that followed the big ice age. And in our study of the glaciers, the first deep minimum belongs to the big ice age. And the big ice age, when the huge polar caps, ice caps started melting, this is when the Noah flood took place.
So there is this sort of validation between the ice ages and the time of Noah's flood.
Yes. And I was also able to date a local Black Sea flood that happened 2,562 years according to the periodicity of ice ages. One cycle after the big flood of Noah. This was local Black Sea flood, and this flood was dated by Ballard, who found the wreck ship Titanic, and he retrieved a piece of wood from the bottom of the sea, piece from a flooded house, and it was dated with carbon-14 as 7,000 years ago. And there is a misunderstanding that this was the Noah flood. This was not the Noah flood. This was the flood after the first mini ice age, when the ice of the first mini ice age started melting.
It's fascinating, Maria. And I wanted to ask if you could explain to us the connection, or explain to us through your research, the connection between Noah, and we know from what you've said that the flood did happen. We know it was associated with the periodicity of the ice ages. But what's the connection between Noah and Enoch?
Mm-hmm. Enoch was great-grandfather of Noah. And what might be extremely interesting, the name Noah means new. And I found ancient sources that say that when Noah was born, his father was very concerned that this might be not his child because it was different from the other children. And he was suspicious that his wife maybe had an affair or something. So, and she was swearing that this is not true. So he went to Enoch because Enoch knew almost everything, and asked him what this means. And Enoch said, give him the name Noah, which means new, because he will survive a big flood and he will start a new civilization, anew from the very beginning.
And so, Maria, is there a connection between Enoch and the land or civilization of Atlantis?
Enoch was the 10th patriarch Noah was the 10th patriarch. Enoch was the 7th. But every one of the patriarchs lived more than 900 years. So, starting with Adam, you pass through Enoch, and the Bible said that Enoch didn't die, he was just taken to heaven. And if you read the book of Enoch, you will see that he was in a state of clinical death. And when he came back, he was telling to his children what he has experienced, and this was the basis of many, many books that he has written. The total number is 30 books. And Noah, when he was fleeing from the flood, he took 7 of the books of Enoch with himself.
And did he take those books from Atlantis
after
then?
His clinical death, he knew so many things that are going to happen. And one of them was Noah, and the other was about the Messiah called Jesus. It is in his predictions, revelations.
So Enoch predicted the Great Flood.
Yes, he knew about the Great Flood.
And was Enoch located in Atlantis?
No. This was after Atlantis sank. Noah fled from the sinking Atlantis. So everything that starts from Noah is after Atlantis.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, Maria, with regard to the books of Enoch, or the book of Enoch, so you say there were originally 30 books, and Noah managed to rescue and take with him 7 of those books.
Yes.
Did those books contain metaphysical knowledge and truths?
Okay. I will tell you that all 7 books were found in the caves of near Qumran.
Is that where the Dead Sea Scrolls were
They
recovered?
were found in 1947. And what is very interesting is that I read Encyclopedia Freemasonry, published in 1912. And it was written there about the 7 books of Enoch that Noah brought from before the flood. And as you can see, these 7 books were found in 1947, 45 years later. Isn't this amazing?
Absolutely. And they, am I right in saying or thinking that they contain metaphysical truth?
I don't know what to say metaphysics. We need to define the term metaphysics because I'm a physicist, okay? And many of the things that were called metaphysics, because our physics was not developed enough to explain them, they were mocked and thrown out of physics. However, our physics was developed further, and now we have nonlinear physics in which many of the things that were mocked with the name metaphysics and thrown out of physics now have their natural explanation in this new branch of physics, nonlinear physics.
And could you give us a couple of examples, Maria?
Example are the energy vortices and anti-vortices of the sun, earth, and man. we have the same type of nonlinear electromagnetic field, which is organized in absolutely the same way. And it seems like God created everything in His image, because the sun has vortices and anti-vortices, and they have opposite polarity in the north hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. And if you cut the sun sphere into two through the equator, you will have the vortices and anti-vortices of male and female human energy field. They are the same vortice. They alternate vortice, anti-vortice, vortice, anti-vortice. And in men and women, they are opposite at the same time of day and night. So, scientists know about the vortices and anti-vortices of the sun, and there is any doubt about this. Nobody questions this, because we see them. They are big. However, when we speak about the human vortices and anti-vortices that are so many times weaker, we start to question them. Are they really existing? I have equipment developed that allows me to measure them. So I have the proof that they exist. And each of these vortices and anti-vortices energy centers are related with a gland of internal secretion or endocrinal gland. And they really determine the hormonal balance, which determines our state of health and our psychological state. Because our behavior, patterns of behavior, depend on hormonal balance.
And I know in one of your books, and you've written so many, they're fascinating, in one of them you explain that the pyramids were built with an understanding of the Earth's vortices and anti-vortices.
Yep. The pyramids were built on top of magnetic anti-vortices which emit energy. The vortices sex energy, they rotate in clockwise direction. The vortices that rotate in counterclock direction, they are called anti-vortices, and they emit energy. So the Earth is gradually cooling, and this is done through emitting not only heat, but emitting energy. And this energy is emitted from the anti-vortices. With the pyramids that they built, we know this, that they built the pyramids on top of anti-vortices, because one of the physicists, Alvarez, went to Egypt with the intent to measure cosmic rays in the pyramids, and he couldn't measure anything, and he had to pack his equipment and come back, because when he unpacked the equipment and plugged it in, the arrows of his instrument were so crazily moving left and right that it was impossible to measure anything. And this is because the pyramids are built on top of magnetic anti-vortices. And the pyramid itself, the vortice is like a funnel. It's like a tornado. And it rotates counterclockwise. And when you have pyramid on the top of it, the pyramid collect the cosmic rays, the cosmic energy, spin it in clockwise direction, and in this way annihilate the anti-vortice. So the pyramids were built with the practical purpose to decrease the destructive energy of the anti-vortices on Earth.
So they were built to help prevent
Yes.
cataclysmic disasters, natural
We
disasters.
will have. They are built in the equatorial area. There are many pyramids. They are not only in Egypt. There are many pyramids in China. There are pyramids in Bosnia. There are pyramids in Italy. There are pyramids in Central America. And the northern part, that's South America, including North America. And the purpose is to decrease the destructive energy coming from the earth. And if these pyramids were not built, we will have a lot more earthquakes and volcanoes active.
And
So
Maria,
whoever
what
came
about-
to Earth was very smart. He built this and made the Earth habitable this way.
What about the Sphinx, Maria? What does the Sphinx symbolize? Why was that built?
What?
I was asking, what about the Sphinx? Why was the
Oh, the
Sphinx
Sphinx.
built? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The Sphinx was not a Sphinx. According to metal plate, which is in the Museum of Cairo, the Sphinx used to be a lion. And there is a lot of erosion on the body of the Sphinx. And the head of the lion was destroyed by a lightning, according to this ancient stone plate. And then Khufu decided to put his head on the top of the lion. And he put a plate in front of the lion, which was now called Sphinx. And if you look at them, you will see that they are from different material, the plate and the head, and they don't have the erosion that the body of the Sphinx has. But if you think of it, the Sphinx is now in a desert. The fact that there is so much water erosion on the body means that this Sphinx has been there a very, very long time when the climate was different. And the climate was different before each big ice age. The poles flip at 60 degrees angle, and this brings changes the climate dramatically and brings a lot of extinctions. So this should be built before the last big ice age. And when they look at the three pyramids in Giza, they look like the belt of Orion, the way it was 10,500 years ago. But considering the erosion, you need to assume that one cycle of precession before this, at least one cycle of precession before this, the pyramids and the Sphinx have been built, which makes 36,000 years. And Egyptian sources say that these pyramids and the Sphinx complex were there long before the pharaohs, very long before. And I have in the book number cited that shows that based on their ancient statements that probably they had been built at least 36,000 years ago.
And do you believe that there's a connection with the age of Leo?
The big ice age, when the poles flip at 60 degrees angle, the climate changes dramatically. That brings a lot of extinctions. Not only this, the Earth is flattened at the poles. Imagine what will happen if the poles flip at 60 degrees. This happens only during Leo age. The Earth needs to be flattened at the new poles that are at 60 degrees angle to the old one. This causes so much volcanic and seismic activity, so much ash is emitted in the air that the sun cannot reach the Earth's surface, and the Earth becomes frozen in 2 to 3 days, they say. They found mammoths in Siberia with still fresh subtropical vegetation in their stomach, which means they didn't have time to digest it. But this means that Siberia once was subtropical climate, and now it's a frozen land after the last flipping of the poles at 60 degrees 12,500 years ago.
And Maria, when, according to your research, will the poles flip again? Obviously, in the next time we have the age of Leo.
Yeah. Yes. The poles will flip at 60 degrees, and we will have big ice age in the next Leo age. And that's why I believe this sculpture of the lion was built as a warning. Mind the Leo age, it is the most destructive. This remains until today the largest sculpture on Earth. The next Leo age is going to be 15,000 years from now, so you don't need to worry about this.
It's not going to happen during the interview. Well, Maria, I want to ask you again about humanoids and humanoid species. So we know of folklore about Bigfoot, for example, and there's a man in Texas who claims that he shot and killed a Bigfoot last year, and that he's going to put that on display or going to go on tour with the corpse. I think it's quite sad that he would have killed that. But I remember reading in one of your books that your research shows that there are, I think you said, a dozen humanoid species.
The total number of humanoid species was 16, according to an ancient source. And they have found so far 11. But I think they will continue finding more. There is more to come. And it is not true that they didn't coexist. Unfortunately, before the year 2000, all evidence that they coexisted was thrown away in the garbage can. After the year 2000, in the year 2001, we had an article in Science that they found in Grandolina in northern Spain 3 adjacent caves, and in one lived Homo sapiens, in the other Homo erectus, in the third Neanderthals. And they found the proof that there had been communication between them because they found the same instruments in different caves, which means that they have been exchanged. And this was the first breakthrough in the new millennium, that they coexisted. They didn't evolve one from another. And
Extremely interesting, Maria. I wanted to ask you,
and
Maria.
now, as you can see, with genetic studies, they are finding that we have neanderthal genes. So it was not only the instrument that was exchanged. There have been more than this.
It's fascinating. Maria, we're going to take a short commercial break, and then when we come back, I'll be asking you more questions and getting more insight from you.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment.
A new era in psychic services has begun. PsychicAccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at PsychicAccess.com.
Welcome back, Maria, after the commercial break. Maria, in all of your research, and I know you've spent many, many years researching ancient texts and doing your scientific validation, but I want to ask you, what connections or correlations did you find between, for example, the Bible and, I think we've lost Maria for a moment, actually. I think we've lost our connection. And Doug's going to get us back. Stephen, are you online there?
I most definitely am. And I was thinking of asking Maria about the ziggurat, which is another fancy pyramid. All of them? Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Maria, sorry we lost you there for a moment, but we're back. And my next question for you, Maria, is this one. In all of your research, can you tell us more about what you read in the Bible and your understanding of some of the things you've shared with us?
The Bible is an ancient source, and I will tell you, the human imagination is not rich enough to create so much factology. So this is our ancient history, take it or leave it. And there are books, like the books of Zenon Kosidowski, in which on one page it is Bible text, and on the next page it is archaeological finding and proof that what is written in the Bible existed.
And you found connections, Maria, between the Bible and other ancient texts. Can you give us some examples of the other ancient texts?
Other ancient texts, there are a lot of ancient texts. But one of the most fascinating texts for me as a scientist are the books of the Hindus. Their ancient astronomy called Surya Siddhanta. And this is the book that I mentioned, that what is written in that ancient source, when I compare it with study of the glaciers, the difference between the two is 0.3%, which is 3 times less than 1%, which means that these people knew who they were talking about.
It's incredible how, in actual fact, over the years...
It's incredible, and I will tell you that during the Ice Ages, the Ice Ages are called Dark Ages. The human brain, and it is not because only of the cold, it is because our brain activity depends too much. Our memory has magnetic origin. And we depend on the electromagnetic field of the sun. And during ice ages, there is almost no solar activity, so the magnetic field of the sun is minimum. And that's why you have cultural minimum. During each ice age, it drops down the civilization to the point that they forget how to write. And then, after the Ice Age, they start from 0 point.
So literally, we lose intelligence and knowledge during these Ice Ages because we just don't have that same connection to the sun.
Yes.
I'm an astrologer.
And I have a lot of proof to support this. That during the Ice Ages, in Babylon, where Babylon was center of civilization, there were only a few writings about astronomy. And this is just unbelievable, considering that many hundreds were there when there was no Ice Age.
And so can you help us understand, Maria, where we are now? So at this time, it's the beginning of 2014, where are we on this spectrum of different ages?
Okay. According to study of the glaciers, we are moving to further warming, and this is part of the natural cycle. If we have contributed in some way to make the rise of the temperature much steeper, we didn't create it. Okay. Whatever we have done is on the top of natural warming. And when this warming finally finishes, we will start moving to the next ice age, according to study of the glaciers. According to study of the glaciers, we are in a period of warming. But the warming, when it reaches a maximum, will be followed by the next ice age.
How about life on other planets, Maria? Do you believe that there is life on other planets out there?
Of course. It will be too narrow-minded to think that we are the only species in the universe. All the more that the Hubble telescope is discovering more and more planets orbiting stars. So I can tell you as a physicist and scientist that life can be expected on planets that have electromagnetic field, because electromagnetic field will be catching the ions from the solar wind. That's what our Earth magnetic field is doing, and that's why we have the ionosphere. And this ionosphere is protecting cold for our Earth. Without this protecting cold, without the magnetic field that catches these ions, and the ions protect us, without the magnetic field, the solar wind will blow all the atmosphere, and the Earth will be that planet. And if you look at the planet Mars, it is an old, cold, and dead planet. There is no atmosphere. And it is absolute illusion to think that we can go to Mars, create atmosphere, and live there. You cannot. If you create atmosphere, the solar wind will blow it out, blow it away.
I remember, Maria, that in one of your books, I think I'm right in saying that you felt that Mars, in fact, doesn't originate in our solar system.
What about the solar system?
I remember reading one of your books.
Yeah.
That there was one planet that you felt originated from elsewhere. In other words, it didn't naturally belong in our solar system. Was that Mars?
Yeah, it's Mars. Because it does not have liquid core. It is much, much older. According to the magnetic studies of Mario Acuna, who dated lava or melted rocks, when they solidify, they register the magnetic field. So they found in the southern half of Mars, in the southern hemisphere of Mars, two craters, huge craters from huge meteors, and they didn't find any magnetic properties in the rocks that were melted by the meteors, which means that these meteors hit Mars when Mars was a dead planet with no magnetic field. And according to calculations of Mario Acuna, this happened 4 million years ago, 4 billion years ago. And because our Earth is 4.32 billion years, this means that Mars didn't originally belong to our solar system. And there are ancient sources that say this, and one of them is the account of the Hindus, the ancient astronomy of the Hindus.
Maria, I was reading about the Anunnaki, these giants that apparently lived or live somehow on our planet. What can you tell us about the Anunnaki and aliens or other civilizations visiting our planet in the past?
Wow. In the Bible it is written, and in many other ancient sources it is written, that the planet was visited by sons of gods which mated with earthly women. And the offspring of this mating were the giants. So in the Bible there is quite a bit of information about the giants. And they found, I have this in one of my books, they found on the territory of Israel, they excavated bones of a giant. So, of course, this was immediately pronounced hoax. But I truly believe that the giants were the offspring of these sons of God that mated to earthly women.
So you do believe that the Anunnaki walked our planet?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they would not be, would you say they were one of the, I think you said 16 or 18 species?
The Hindu ancient astronomy, Surya Siddhanta says that this is the astronomy of the demigods who were our fathers. So this is another source that says what the Bible says.
That they were demigods.
They were called gods because they were very advanced in knowledge and technology. They were called demigods, almost gods. And they were worshipped as gods.
I know that
including whatever they brought to planet Earth, it was considered holy.
I know, Maria, that when you wrote about Noah and the descendants of Noah scattering in all directions to Egypt, Mesopotamia, Middle Asia, etc., bringing advanced knowledge, you then looked at languages and the similarities or connections between the linguistic roots. Could you tell us a little about that and how that demonstrates that Noah...
This demonstrates that we have common origin, in many ancient languages: Aramaic, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Tocharian, Sumerian, Gaelic. You have the same word, Kuman, which means spiritual man. My family name is Kuman, so I had to dig out what it means. It means spiritual man in all ancient languages. In Hebrew, when they worship God, they will kneel and get up. Kneeling was kiwi. Get up was kum. And from here came kum, as somebody who is spiritually up. And two nations still speak Sanskrit. The Lithuanian language is Sanskrit, and the Koreans have a lot of Sanskrit words. Both these nations have the name Kum, and the meaning is spiritual. And I was amazed to find out that these ancient languages, which we consider extinct, they still have a representation here and there. And there are nations that are still speaking them. And I think that the Welsh language, Cymric, is the language of the Cimmerians, and this was when the local Black Sea floods scattered the people all over the planet Earth, and it was 7,000 years ago. So Cymric is 7,000 years old. This is the oldest language still spoken. And I spoke with Welsh people, and they said, unfortunately, the language will not exist much longer because the new generation does not speak Welsh, and the old generation is dying. Another representation of the Sumerian language is the Lithuanians. They speak Sanskrit, not Sumerian.
Oh, Maria,
so
I have
we
to
can
ask
see
you...
the Sanskrit, that language, but Lithuanians are still speaking Sanskrit.
Yes, well, Maria, we only have a couple of minutes left, but I have to ask you this last question because this fascinates me. What is the connection between the Celts and the Native American Indians?
I have a whole book written about this. Celts in America before Columbus, the origin of the Native Americans. I found tribes that came from Asia. I found the same conglomerate of tribes in Asia, and I found the same conglomerate of tribes here in North America. And when they came through Bering Strait, they came during Ice Age. They could walk between the two continents. They settled around the Great Lakes, and They were Celtic tribes, the so-called Celts. They were called Tohari when they lived in Asia. When they started moving to Europe, they were called Celti, which in Greek means strangers, and the Romans called them Galli, which in Latin means strangers. They lived in Middle Asia for 5,000 years, so nobody remembered who these people were. And they were the Celts, and the Celts were a mixture of many, many tribes. And the tribes that live around the American Indian, so-called American Indian tribes that live around the Great Lake were Dakota, who were probably descendants of the Daki, which were Aryan tribe, and Iroquois probably came after the collapse of the Empire of Irnik at 600 AD. So they came to America 1,000 years before the settlers came. And that's why they were called Native Americans. There's no such thing like Native American. They all came at different times from different parts of planet Earth. And the Cherokee are the southern branch of the Iroquois. So the Cherokees are Celtic tribe too.
Well, Maria,
that's why you see a lot of the settlers that came 1,000 years after these Celtic tribes came, they intermarried. They intermarried because we have this feature. We are attracted to people that look like us. Can you see? The settlers were attracted to the Cherokees because they look kind of like them. Because they were genetically connected. If you go far enough, you will find this.
Maria, this has been fascinating, and I could ask you questions forever, but we've come to the end of our time, and I want to thank you for joining us and for sharing your many years, or just some of your knowledge from your many years of research and scientific validation. Thank you for joining us.
Don't miss. Don't think that I'm Romanian because I will get offended.
No, I know you're not from Romania. But you've got amazing knowledge, Maria, and I'm really grateful for you taking the time to join us, particularly when you're not feeling well.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me. I highly appreciate this.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate you, and thank you so much. We'll definitely want you back to share more with us someday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, my name is Res Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers, get access, psychic access, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.
Before I introduce Dr. Kuman, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a long-term university professor and writer, and she often jokes that she spent her life really as a writer among scientists and a scientist among writers. And she does now write science fiction, which brings the two worlds together. She was born and educated in Europe, holds a PhD degree in science and a degree in medical biophysics from Europe. She has extended experience in teaching and popularizing science, which helps her present even complicated things in a manner that's easy to understand. She speaks more than 12 languages, and that's enabled her to read ancient sources in their original language and to read the web pages of ancient history about many nations. And her knowledge of ancient texts helped her to integrate ancient wisdom and to do so in a really scientific manner. And I really enjoy Dr. Kuman's work because she answers so many questions in a very, very credible and scientific manner. Well, Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Steve.
Thank you, Maria. We're really excited, and I want to thank you particularly because I know you've got a cold and you've still made it for us, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, Maria, the first question I want to ask you is for you to explain to us where your work exploring the mysteries of our world began, or how it began.
This is difficult to answer because I have been curious in the Ice Age, when the ice of the first mini Ice Age started melting.
It's fascinating, Maria, and I wanted to ask if you could explain to us the connection, or explain to us through your research, the connection between Noah, and we know from what you've said that the flood did happen. We know it was associated with the periodicity of the ice ages. But what's the connection between Noah and Enoch?
Mm-hmm. Enoch was great-grandfather of Noah. And what might be extremely interesting, the name Noah means new. And I found ancient sources that say that when Noah was born, his father was very concerned that this might be not his child because it was different from the other children. And he was suspicious that his wife maybe had an affair or something. So, and she was swearing that this is not true. So he went to Enoch because Enoch knew almost everything, and asked him what this means. And Enoch said, give him the name Noah, which means new, because he will survive a big flood and he will start a new civilization, anew from the very beginning. And this girl was all my life. And I had a lot of questions in my head that were not answered. And when I started writing the books, I had been planning when I retired from the university to write books. But it happened so that there was budget cuts and everybody who was part-time was laid off. So I desperately looked for jobs for a while. And then I decided, okay, maybe it is time to sit down and write the books that I had been planning to write all my life. So I started writing, and this writing continued 25 years. And I have written 25 books. I cannot believe myself that I reached the number 25. If somebody would tell me I will write 25 books, I will say, I doubt it. The number is too big. So I had a lot of questions in my head during my lifetime, and I just started getting the answers. And sometimes they will be funneled in my head in the middle of writing another book. So I'm very thankful for these gifts. And being a scientist, I spend a lot of time trying to find proof that other sources said the same. So, and in this way, the things that I have look really logical and have some weight.
Or you made that connection.
Yeah. I was able, based on study of the glaciers, to date Noah's flood. And this is the big flood that followed the big ice age. And in our study of the glaciers, the first deep mean belongs to the big ice age. And the big ice age, when the huge polar caps, ice caps started melting, this is when the Noah flood took place.
So there is this sort of validation between the ice ages and the time of Noah's flood.
Yes. And I was also able to date a local Black Sea flood that happened 2,562 years according to the periodicity of ice ages. One cycle after the big flood of Noah. This was local Black Sea flood, and this flood was dated by Ballard, who found the wreck ship Titanic, and he retrieved a piece of wood from the bottom of the sea, piece from a flooded house, and it was dated with carbon-14 as 7,000 years ago. And there is a misunderstanding that this was the Noah flood. This was not the Noah flood. This was the flood after the first.
Well, that's Maria. I know that you've come up with many answers yourself through your channeling, but you've done a huge amount of scientific research to validate them. I want to ask you if you could explain to us your understanding of the ice ages.
The ice ages?
Yes, the different ice ages and Noah's flood.
Yeah. I will tell you that I read a book written by John and Catherine Embry about the ice ages solving the mystery. And I was so impressed by this book because he has periodicity of ice ages based on the research done on study of the glaciers. And I read ancient sources that speak about periodicity of ice ages, and they give precisely what is the periodicity. And I compare with our contemporary studies of the glaciers, and the difference was 0.3%, which means the ancients knew what they were talking about.
So they knew about these periodic ice ages, and they made the connection with Noah's Ark and the flood.